When it comes to the case of Final Fantasy VII Remake, it seems like rumors are always surfacing, and due to the game's mysterious nature with so many questions surrounding it, we always have to call them all into question. With today's rumor mill, like all the rest, take the information in this video for the purposes of entertainment only, as I report all major rumors and speculatory details that surface about Final Fantasy VII Remake. From there, I let you, the audience, decide which ones you believe are true and which ones you believe are absolute garbage. This rumor comes to us via Reddit, with information that claims to be from the El Segundo Square Enix branch in California, which apparently is the publishing and localization branch. They then begin to cite the details in no particular order regarding Final Fantasy VII Remake. This rumor gives us a lot of interesting details on the potentiality of the game's combat system, its overworld map, summons, and many other things. And honestly, it's pretty exciting. I actually really hope this one turns out to be true. First and foremost, it starts by reiterating what we had in the previous rumor. Quote, "The game is in fact two parts. Part 1 ends as Aerith is let down into the water after her death and it fades black. This means that we now have two rumors claiming that the remake is just two parts, which is beginning to make us wonder the validity of this claim. Two parts will be significantly more easy for players to digest, even though we originally thought it would be 3 or 4 parts. He then goes on to say, quote, "Materia is shown in almost all weapons. They do not appear in accessories, nor do accessories appear on your character model, standard Final Fantasy stuff. Different weapons will however appear on your model. For example, Runeblade will be on Cloud's back if equipped and exploring. This actually makes me really excited, as each weapon will have to be adjusted in design to display materia, and it'll be super cool to see how they integrate that into each weapon." He then goes on to say regarding weapons that, quote, "Different weapons have different triangle heavy hits, does not cost an ATB charge. The Buster Sword has Punisher. Runeblade, for example, has Cleave. You use these heavy hits after a string of regular attacks. Regular hits are chip damage, and the main damage will be from heavy combo finishers, and of course the massive limit breaks. This makes sense in accordance to what we've seen in the State of Play trailer, where these new attacks never seen before in FF7 seem to be your finishers. Since ATB attacks and these new triangle-based attacks seem to do the most amount of damage, the idea of this game being a so-called hack and slash is just completely ridiculous, as you'll still be waiting for your ATB gauge to fill in order to make your most strategic moves." He then says, quote, "Magic will consume ATB along with MP. You get more bars as the game progresses." Again, ATB is still in the game, and according to this rumor, ATB plays an absolutely pivotal role in combat, as in order to use your most powerful attacks, you'll have to wait for it to charge. He continues by stating, quote, "Summons will work for the most part as cutscenes like the original. They do not fight with you on the battlefield. There is one new summon, Amarok, and appears to be a wolf, and causes darkness in addition to damage." Considering that Final Fantasy VII has about 16 summons in the original game, with about half of that being in Part 1, it seems really incredible that they would choose to add even more summons, though it's extremely welcome if true. The next details are some of the biggest regarding the overworld map, saying, quote, "The overworld map is almost seamless. There are some zones, but there will be roads and methods of transportation. It is open world. Vehicles like the Tiny Bronco work almost exactly the same, only being able to go in lighter water. There will be items available occasionally on the field. Chocobos will of course be obtainable after the farm." This is pretty exciting to hear if true, as it means the world of Gaia is going to be more explorable than ever. It seems like Part 1 will at the very least be the size of Final Fantasy 15, although it sounds slightly bigger to me, at least according to this rumor. I can easily imagine the Tiny Bronco working like the Regalia Type F in Final Fantasy 15. He then goes on to say, quote, "They have really made an effort to make each town feel lived in, and it feels like there's a reason to why each place is like it is. Each town is very unique from the last. Cosmo Canyon and its occasional dust storms are a stark contrast from the streets of Midgar. Upper Junon feels a lot more like a military installation than Midgar as well." Again, this was something that appeared in the previous rumors stating something very similar, and that is that the world feels very lived in. I can easily imagine this being the case. Square Enix has talked about this in interviews news about the game's environmental design. I honestly can't wait to explore every single detail. And then next, we have information regarding Sephiroth. Quote, Sephiroth is very limited in what's shown of him until the Calm flashback. Before this, you only hear his voice or see glimpses of him in Cloud's breakdowns. To me, this is a great approach, as it builds up a lot of tension towards Sephiroth's reveal, which is really how it should be. He then talks about how high the character's HP was in the State of Play trailer, something I noted in my combat analysis of the game. Quote, the HP shown during the State of Play is not indicative of what their HP should normally be during those times, simply for dev showcasing. This is actually pretty commonplace in Square Enix trailers and most likely the case regardless of this rumor's validity, so no surprise there. The next part is a very massive claim. This might even be the part you've been waiting for. There will be demos on the game floor, with a PSN demo following shortly after for people at home directly after E3. PlayStation Plus is required. This absolutely lines up with the fact that editor-in-chief for US Gamer, Kat Bailey, says she claims to know someone who's played an exclusive demo for Final Fantasy VII Remake in a podcast. There will be a link to a video explaining this in the description below. It's also worth noting that the rumor dropped on the same day that she made that claim. Considering that this lines up with someone who has industry credibility, it's very possible we could see Final Fantasy VII Remake, the playable demo, next month in the wake of E3. And the fact that you need PlayStation Plus to download it, Sony is going to make a lot of money, and it explains why Sony's own social media has been pushing the game so hard. He then continues onward saying, quote, monster designs for a lot of the enemies will remain recognizable. Some of them do not make an appearance. For example, there was no ghost enemies in the train yard. Interesting. And that Shinra HQ won't have quite as many floors to explore, but there is more to do on the floors you go to, so it still feels like you're fighting through a lot to get to the top. That's something I'd have to play through in order to know if it's good or bad, but it seems like it won't be too big of a problem. Then we have a lot of details about the characters. Quote, the design for Tifa is also true to the original outfit. Her face appears to be similar to her Advent Children design, but slightly more Western. Materia also shows up on her gloves. To be honest, this is exactly what I expected. If you liked Advent Children Tifa in terms of her outward appearance, then you'll pretty much be getting an improved version of that. And this next one is bound to make some people mad, but Keiichi will be pronounced as Keiichi. And interestingly enough, has undergone no major design overhaul. His fighting style is more up close, and does have his bars for a limit break. As far as Nanaki goes, Red 13 has clones, Cobalt 14 and Indigo 15. You must fight before he joins your party in Shinra HQ. That's pretty surprising. That's kind of a big change. Not necessarily a bad one, but I'm interested. Then there's one of the best characters from the original game, Cid Highwind, whose presentation in the remake concerned a large number of people. Here's what he had to say about that, quote, Cid does not appear to be smoking, but you do see evidence that he does. He is clearly upset with Shara, but toned down the aggressiveness as they felt it was unnecessary. It's a very hard call for me to make on this one, but it seems like they kept the original details of his character, but they made it much more digestible, as they didn't want it to seem like he was probably abusing Shara, which would not sit too well with the modern audience. Again, this is hard to call until I see it. And regarding the once optional Vincent and Yuffie, details here fall in line with what we got previously in rumors, stating, quote, Vincent and Yuffie are no longer optional. You can miss them up to a certain point where they become mandatory to get. You automatically get Yuffie if you hadn't gotten her by Rocket Town, for example. This follows the previous rumor that stated that Yuffie would be mandatory by Rocket Town, so this one might have some gravity to it. And then there are a lot of you worried about the wall market events. And if this rumor is true, you'll be happy to know that Cloud's famous scene is still in there. He says that Cloud will still have a dress and wig in one particular scene, but it fades to black and getting in and out of it. Of course, I didn't think anyone would actually expect him to show that, but yeah, I'm really fascinated on how they're going to rework that scene. We then get some details on the Golden Saucer, saying, quote, Golden Saucer will have some games that are not playable yet. They are essentially replaying a part of a later story mission. Some will be playable right when you arrive. They want it to feel more grand and provide a break from the main story beats while still eventually having to incorporate the story later into it. Essentially, this means more mini-games will unlock as you play through Final Fantasy VII Remake, and they incentivize you to return to the Gold Saucer as the game progresses. does. He also notes that the Honeybee Inn requires guild to get into instead of a membership card, and that the squatting minigame returns. He then caps it all off by saying each of the 2 parts will be full price $60 games, and signals have already gone to retailers to begin opening pre-orders, which is why many of you may have noticed that companies like GameStop have begun taking pre-orders for the game. Some of you may have thought the game would be at some sort of weird discounted price structure, but I never thought this would be the case. These are described as full games, and assuming that they're at least a 20 to 40 hour experience, I would treat them as such. I personally don't find the price offendable. As long as there's a wealth of new content and not just the same Final Fantasy VII divided into 2 parts, then I welcome it with open arms. So Ultima Weapons, what do you make of this massive rumor? It claims that Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to have a PSN demo, and reiterates that the game will be 2 full price parts. Do you think this rumor has any weight to it? Do you even want this rumor to be true? Subscribe, click the bell icon, and let me know in the comments below. And if you've been enjoying my content, be sure to check out the Patreon for the Night Sky Prince, like my awesome supporter Eternal Claymore. Thank you so much for your contribution to helping me build the ultimate Final Fantasy and JRPG YouTube channel. You are greatly appreciated, Eternal Claymore. Shout out to them and the rest of the Ultima community.